What if your body suddenly turned against you, stripping away your health, your vitality, your confidence? What if every doctor, every expert you turned to just shrugged and offered nothing but hopelessness and prescriptions with a long list of side effects? Well, on today's episode, I speak with a woman who experienced just that. After being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease and told that there was no cure, she made one bold decision that would change everything. She took matters into her own hands and uncovered the root causes that everyone else missed. And against all odds, she completely reversed her diagnosis. Now, she helps people worldwide reclaim their health and their confidence. She believes that no two healing journeys are the same. Today, she shares her incredible journey. So if you are ready to challenge any limits that may have been set for you, or maybe what you've been told about your own health, this is an inspiring episode that can do just that. And it starts now. Welcome to Shift or Get Off the Pot, the podcast that helps you get out of your head and into action so you can make your dreams your reality. Let's get to it. Welcome to today's episode. My guest today is a powerful example of what happens when you stop accepting a diagnosis as your destiny and you take healing into your own hands. My guest, Johanna Dahlman, is someone that once faced the reality of living with an autoimmune disease. But she decided that she was going to dig a little bit deeper. After bouncing from doctor to doctor and just getting symptom management, no real cure, she got a little fed up and decided to take matters into her own hands. The result is that she has completely reversed the condition. She has cured herself. She has gone on to help people in over 67 countries. She is now a health and high performance hair growth coach. She is the founder of Alopecia Angel, and she is joining us today to talk about her journey and also how you can take steps to help yourself in your own healing process. So welcome to the show today, Johanna Dahlman.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I just cannot believe how you have reversed this, because I am looking at you, and for anybody that's on YouTube, they'll see this. But if not, you have this absolutely gorgeous mane of hair. I mean, it's beautiful. So it's hard to believe that you once went through alopecia and had all this hair loss. So kind of take us back to the beginning and what first happened.
So let's start by defining what alopecia is. So alopecia is the medical term for hair loss. And underneath this umbrella, you have various types of hair loss. The type of hair loss that I had in particular was alopecia areata. It's an autoimmune disease. And there's 3 levels. I like to say that sometimes you can graduate to the next level. Alopecia areata is marked in children, women, and men with a singular, it normally starts with a singular bald spot. And it can happen in the beard for men or on the scalp for women, children, and men as well. And for me, it was a bald spot in the back of my head. And my hairstylist actually was the one to diagnose me, because I get my highlights done. And, through the foils, he's looking in the back, which is a place where I'm not looking at or necessarily feeling or seeing. And therefore, he saw it and he said, Johanna, okay, you have alopecia. You need to go see a doctor. And I had never heard of this term. I didn't know what he was talking about. He showed me in a mirror. And then I just started, looking online on my phone while he's doing my foils, while he's, doing my color. And I start looking and I see that there's so much negativity surrounding this particular diagnosis. A, because there's quote unquote no cure. B, because people have just accepted going bald. C, because doctors are baffled. Medical textbooks have no answers. And there is nothing that the medical establishment can do for you except for symptom manage, which if you were to go down the route of medications, this causes more problems, actually. It can cause more hair loss. It can cause your body to not respond well. It has side effects, of course. It has negative ramifications. It affects fertility in both men and women. It can also harm other organs of your body. And on top of it, the hair loss is a maybe. It's not a guarantee. And so going the medical route is not the best option for anyone with hair loss, point blank, regardless of the type, because again, it's just managing symptoms and it's not really getting to the root cause or causes of the hair loss in particular. From here, I was really shocked, dumbfounded. I had, tears coming down and streaming down my face. I felt very numb by the time I left the salon that day. It was quite unfortunate because normally getting my hair done is a fun experience. I love looking and feeling like $1 million once I leave, with new hair color, the roots covered and all these things. And yet this time it was numbness. It was a gray shadow that was cast over me. And really my hairstylist wasn't able to give me more information. That was it. He just told me this one sentence and that was it. Lo and behold, now I've spoken at many beauty institutions, including Paul Mitchell, and I've learned that what hairstylists and beauty professionals learn about alopecia is literally just a paragraph in textbooks. That's it. And so, yes, they can diagnose you because they can see that this picture matches up to what they've learned in beauty school, but that they have no other resources or recourses for you. And so this is a black hole of sorts when you're diagnosed, even if you were to be diagnosed at school or with a medical professional, because again, the medical establishment and that conventional route isn't the way to heal. It's just going to lead you to more hair loss, more frustration and disappointment. And then of course, more health issues potentially as well.
So I have a question about that. I mean, as you said, they have like a paragraph that they learn about it, but at least they learned something about it. What would have happened if he hadn't seen that? Like, how long do you think it would have taken before you would have noticed that, okay, there's really a problem here?
It's hard to say, right? We could always play the what if game, but the progression of alopecia areata is the next step is totalis, which means in my case, I lost over 50% of my hair, all of it, half of my eyebrows, eyelashes, plus an extra inch of forehead I had. And the next step would be to go completely bald, but then remain and keep the hair on the body. The next step after that is alopecia universalis. And that's where you lose all hair all over your body. So knuckles, armpit, legs, everywhere. And this can happen in children. This can happen in women and men of any age or race. And so this is the severity of it. However, the most severe aspect of having one autoimmune disease is that you open the door and gateway for 25% of those people can acquire a second and a third autoimmune disease. So think MS, think rheumatoid arthritis, think lupus, think Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, think, there's over 100 different types of autoimmune diseases, and many of them like to buddy up. For example, Hashimoto's and alopecia love to buddy up. Rheumatoid arthritis and alopecia love to buddy up. Another one is psoriasis or eczema and alopecia also like to buddy up. And so the thing is, our bodies are connected. And when we fail to treat and fail to take action, we're opening the door to more potential issues and harm.
So is it just because the body is already in a vulnerable state, there's more stress on it, and that's why it's pairing up with something else?
Correct. And also because you're not tackling the root causes. And so with not tackling the situation at the heart of the matter and only suppressing the immune system, because that's currently what's available to us for those with alopecia or for those with autoimmune diseases in general, there's immunosuppressant drugs and steroids and creams, but none of those things work. They just manage the symptom. And so the problem is like, so since we're not getting to the bottom of this, which is the root cause or causes, then again, we're just continuing in our same old pattern of diet and lifestyle, which again is opening the door to more severe diseases, severe autoimmune diseases, and it just can continue. Like for me, it was hair loss. And at the time, it was absolutely devastating and traumatizing. I look back now and I think that it was a blessing that it was just hair loss. And let me just put a caveat to that. It wasn't just hair loss. It was a tsunami of symptoms that came along with it, from digestive to insomnia to brain fog to lethargy to lack of motivation to, my hormones were off the charts. Everything was not working as they normally would. I had dry eyes and dry skin, just a bunch of symptoms. And I was in my 30s. Early 30s. I was at my peak health. I had abs to show for it. I had a personal trainer. I was running and doing Pilates and yoga every day. Like I was extremely active. And yet this happened out of quote unquote nowhere. And so the thing is that I didn't want more issues to come about, even though they did. And at the same time, having that second or third autoimmune disease makes life more challenging and makes healing more challenging too. Not to say that it can't be done, because it can, but it would just require a little more time and effort for sure. And so again, tackling the alopecia was always my main concern. And today, now I see clients who have 2 and 3 autoimmune diseases. And so again, we can reverse it, but you need to tackle it from the root and not necessarily just manage the symptoms with medicine or immunosuppressant drugs.
Well, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it, but also I would imagine, like what you were just talking about, the hormones are out of whack, dry eye, all these other symptoms. But I think is part of that simply because there's so much stress already that you're dealing with the pure fact that you have something that came out of quote unquote nowhere. And now I would imagine, I'd be depressed. I'd be thinking, what the heck's going on? And then trying to find an answer, but not really getting an answer, or taking medicines that actually create more problems. Because let's face it, a lot of the medicines have so many side effects that is it really even worth it?
No, it's not worth it. And that's why I hesitated. Because I had just met my husband, who at the time we were dating, but I knew this was going into the serious route. We wanted to have a family and start to have kids. And so when I started looking at these medications and at these prescriptions, it was one of two things. It was either, you try and hope and hold your breath for the hair, or do you want to protect the fertility and have that baby? Because having that baby and having that family was more important to me than the hair. However, in my quest of regaining my health and my hair, it actually, allowed me and ignited, upgraded my fertility, so much so where I had my first child at the age of 40 on the first try. And so the thing is, there are ripple effects, either negative or positive, to the choices we make. And so the choice that I took was to go the natural route, because the question that led me there was, if I always had hair, why now in my 30s, why now would I start going bald? Why now all of a sudden? And so it just didn't make sense to me. No one in my family had alopecia. No one in my family has autoimmune diseases. And my family in general is relatively pretty healthy. I was the poster child of health for my family, and yet I was the one with the diagnosis. And so this is where I started questioning doctors. I started questioning the logic behind things. I started questioning the prescriptions. I started questioning the options, and I started questioning everything. It just, none of it made sense to me.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, where does it come? How does it just come out of nowhere? There is a root cause, as you found out. Yeah. So what is that root cause?
Well, it's going to look different for everybody. It's like saying, why is it that, someone is diagnosed with cancer, let's say. The reasons to that cancer or to that person and cancer is going to look different for each person. And the way they heal it or put it in remission is also going to look different. And so even now, 7 years into helping people around the world, I see that no one case of hair loss is the same. Even if we all had the same type of hair loss, the root causes are all going to be the same. The challenges would be different. Everything would be different. Root causes, the challenges, the difficulties, the overcoming it, all of it. It's like running a marathon. We can all say we're all going to run the Boston Marathon tomorrow, but the challenges in training, the diet, the lifestyle, the responsibilities, how we get there, how we fly there, everything's going to look so different for each of us. And so this is the thing. It's not a one size fits all. And this is why the health and, medical industry in general has it wrong when it comes to, the supplements or the minoxidils, the Rogaines, the laser caps, the PRP, or anything else. Like these one size fits all gimmicks are not helping everybody. They're not. We know this. And on top of it, this is why they say that there's no cure. They say there's no cure because it's not a one size fits all. It's not one pill to cure everybody the same way. And of course, that could never be. We are all so different. Our diets are different. Our lifestyles are different. The way we live, breathe, eat, everything is just so different. And of course, those causes, as we go back to, are going to also look different for each person.
Well, because we all react differently to stress and how we handle it as individuals, and everybody's got a different threshold for that as well. So I would imagine, it's going to be different for everybody. So for you, in your case, what was the thing or is there any one specific thing that you could point to and say, oh my gosh, this is the thing that might have triggered it, or this is the thing that I really need to focus my energy on to start reversing it?
For me personally, it was never one thing. It was a multitude of things. And for my clients that I work with, I see the same thing. It's never one thing. I've worked with doctors. I've worked with physical trainers, personal trainers, nurses, dietitians, nutritionists, and they all come to me with their hair loss. I even just recently worked with a gut health coach that she's been losing her hair for 20 years. And just by changing a couple things that were personalized for her, her hair loss stopped in 24 hours.
Wow.
24 hours. And
that's
so
crazy.
That's the power of healing. Yeah. The thing is, you could be thinking, I'm doing all the things. I am fit. I have a personal trainer, or I am a doctor. I know it all, or I know exactly what to do. But at the same time, we all have blind spots. And I think it's more about the blind spots versus what are the root causes, right? And so
that's the root causes, the blind spots.
The root causes will all look different, but the tricky part here is the blind spots. None of us are 100% self-aware to see exactly what's holding us back. This can go. I've actually just finished a book, and they call it parachutes with holes in it. Because athletes train with parachutes so that as they're running or training for a marathon, once they take off the parachutes, then they're running faster at a faster rate because, right, the parachute is holding you back on purpose, but this is a training mechanism. The problem when we have this parachute on our back in life is that we have something there on our back and we don't know what it is. And it's holding us back, and it's creating this drag for us not to get the promotion, for us not to accomplish XYZ, for us not to heal, for us not to, get to that next level of performance. And this is the problem with these blind spots, as I like to call them. In this other book that I read, it was called Parachutes. But these are things that could be good for you or bad for you. And in the case of healing, and in the case of my healing, it took me 40 years to be so self-aware, like nitty-gritty self-aware, so that I can see, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is what I need to be doing. And then this is where you pivot. Because again, we're not all the same. And even me from 5 years ago, I'm still not the same person from 5 years ago. And so it's a constant evolution. It's a constant pivot. It's a constant needing to be self-aware to see, okay, where am I being held back so that I can reach that next level? And I think that's what trips us all up in hair loss, but also in life, is that we're not self-aware enough to point these out. And this is why working with an expert is so key, because I can look at someone's 12-page intake form and then start picking out all these blind spots that they didn't realize are actually connected and correlated to their hair loss. And this is why I was able to help the gut health coach in just 24 hours. And she didn't even implement everything. She implemented just a handful of things because she was traveling, and boom, 24 hours stopped.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes somebody outside of it because you're so right in the middle of it, in the thick of it. You can't see what's going on. when you were going through this and figuring it out for yourself, because you said you were like the poster child of fitness for your family.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, were you just very high adrenaline, high achiever type personality?
Yes, high achiever. I worked for Apple, so very high achiever, type A. Definitely very active, go, go, go. Love to travel, love to do activities. At one point I lived in Miami and would just work out because that's the culture of Miami, and do it for like 3-4 hours a day. Nonstop. Instead of driving my car, I would ride my bicycle. Instead of, doing, I don't know, yoga, I would do some HIIT training or, Barry's boot camp or what have you. And that's part of the environment of Miami. And so it pushes you to do more, even if it's a freestyle meetup and you're doing beach volleyball. You're getting your workouts in, and that's part of it. I was overworking my body in many ways. Oxidative stress is a big thing. And yes, there's a lot of people who love to work out, but you can overdo it. You can overdo a lot of things. You can overdo drinking water, which will cause death. You can overdo going to the sauna, and that can also cause, issues and ramifications. So there's a lot of things that are good for you, but we also need to be self-aware and say, okay, when do we stop? When do we, take a break? When do we rest? When do we, change?
Yeah, it's finding the balance. And I would imagine when you just started bouncing around, as I said earlier, from doctor to doctor, like, did you just get, hey, I'm so sorry, we can give you this cream, or I'm so sorry, use this shampoo, or it's just something you're going to have to live with? And was it just a matter of saying, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm going to just start digging a little bit deeper. I'm going to start looking at my lifestyle and where some things might be off? Or was it finding a holistic doctor and having somebody start walking you through this so you could become more self-aware?
So I didn't find the doctor, just the opposite. I went to doctor with really no hope because they were all very tunnel visioned. The first one was in the Netherlands, and she shrugged her shoulders. Sorry, can't help you. Got nothing for you. Have a good day, type thing. And then I saw a doctor in Denver, and he's like, well, we can try some creams. And the thing is, I started by this time looking at body language of the doctors. And so when he said, let's try some creams, just in that sentence, it just sounded like, A, there's no hope. This is not going to work. And we could just I can give you this, but just for just to make you happy and go home. Which didn't leave me happy at all, made me even madder. And then I went to another doctor in California, and another, and another, and another. And it was the gamut from I can do nothing for you to here's a banquet of prescriptions. It was that big, wide of a gap. But no one wanted to look at diet and lifestyle. No one wanted to look at a natural approach. It was either nothing or all. And so this was the difference of it. Time was an issue, but then also where I lived at the time, I was living in Europe. And so I couldn't go and come back to California every month and, refill a prescription and this type of thing. This wasn't working. And the healthcare system in the Netherlands is very budget conscious and doesn't help you unless you literally are, with a tumor on your head, really needing severe attention. They're not just going to help you for one little bald spot, which in reality turned into another and another and another. And that's how these bald spots start connecting and create, baldness all over. And so this was scary because not only was I shedding tons in the shower on a daily basis, but I just kept seeing more and more bald spots appear. And so this was creating anxiety, creating depression, creating an uncertainty, an angst within me, not letting me sleep, not letting me relax. So even if I wanted to relax and go on vacation, that was not an option because this was churned on 24/7, creating obsessive thoughts about my situation. And I became so obsessed about it where I just took the charge on healing myself, on researching, on investigating and looking at the data and looking at what was possible and trying and erroring on so many different levels so that I can actually get to a point to where I felt better, the hair was coming, and that day was absolutely priceless. I mean, I can think about it and like feel my body as if that day was here, because the day that I started to feel like myself again, looking at myself in the mirror, knowing, like this inner knowing telling me it's going to be okay, the hair is coming back, this veil of symptoms, the brain fog, just all of it wiped off. I knew I was on the right track. I knew I was on the right track. And that's a lot of it, is like, I didn't have a guide. I didn't have someone to tell me like step by step what to do. And this is why it took me 4 years. This doesn't need to be a struggle. It doesn't have to take long. You can actually heal and reverse hair loss in less time. And you can do so. You can see hair growth in less than 8 weeks. And that, I think that's the beauty of working with somebody who knows what they're looking for and who doesn't just have options that aren't options, really, you know? And what I see now is that choosing your practitioner goes back to you as well. That we need to take responsibility in who we choose to work with, because just because you've gone to 1 or 2 or 3 or even 10 or 20 doctors, we need to realize who can help us and who cannot help us. Everyone wants to help us, but not everyone can. I believe that if anyone is in the health and wellness field, it's because they truly love to help people thrive, achieve goals and be their best. However, not anyone can and not everyone can. And this is something that we need to understand. And so through body language, through asking better questions, through really seeing, hey, do you have results of somebody that you have healed from alopecia? I should have been asking this early on, and it didn't occur to me to ask these questions. I should have been asking better questions. And instead of just thinking, hey, doctor, because you're a doctor, I already assume you can help me, when that's not the case. They can't. Right. And so, we have to really be able to differentiate who can and who can't, and then move on.
And it's asking the right questions and actually feeling empowered to ask the right questions too. I mean, you know what you don't know what you don't know, right? It's kind of one of those cases until you kind of go through it, and then you try so many times. And I think that frustration is the thing that leads you to start saying, "Oh, wait, I gotta go a little bit deeper. I gotta ask different questions." But for you yourself, 2 things here that you just brought up. One, I love the fact that you're talking about you can heal yourself very quickly. And we're talking obviously about the hair loss, but in other areas too. And you can heal yourself so quickly. And I love that, because that is something I've heard many, many times from many different guests that are from neuroscientists, from psychologists, from functional practitioners, medicine practitioners. And because the fact is that when you make a decision and when you get your mind in line with it, you can heal yourself so quickly. And it is amazing to me what the human body is capable of doing. But also, you talked about really just taking longer for yourself because you were kind of in your own mind, which I can imagine. You have to have a lot of mental strength to try and battle what's up here, because if I'm losing all my hair and I'm on vacation, I'm not going to relax. I can tell you that right now. I don't care what's going on. I can try, but you're trying to fool yourself and trick yourself into something. And let's face it, our mind knows that, hey, come on, there's something else here, and you must always be living with that. So I applaud you for, 4 years, I don't think is that long to be able to get through that and figure it out. And now what you're able to do with other people and help them reverse things, like you said, 24 hours with somebody, that's incredible. But again, I also think part of that is when that person is also in that state of mind where I'm ready, let's go. Like, you got to be open to knowing that you can, reverse that.
I always say that believing is the first step. If you don't believe, you got nothing. You really don't. You have to believe that there's a possibility. And I actually have a couple people in mind that I'm thinking about who have been recently diagnosed with something. And it's either you want to heal and you put your effort towards that and your energy towards that, or you don't want to heal and you just want to continue living your life in a very, settling manner. And you can choose to settle, and you can choose to heal, and you can choose. And I really believe that healing is a choice. You choose to have hair growth. And for those of you who are looking on YouTube, like, I'm 40 years old and I'm in my mid 40s at this. And it's like, you can see, like, I have gray hair, but I also grow an inch of hair a month. I have better hair now in my mid 40s than I did when I was 20, than I did when I was 25. This is the power of actually understanding what's going on, how this happens, and what it is I need to get to this level.
And taking things into your own control rather than putting that responsibility. I think it's so easy to shift that responsibility out to someone, like you said, oh, just because you've got the title of doctor, you should be able to heal me. But they don't always have the answers, obviously, or they're busy, or they don't have time to look it all up. And especially, in that world, in the medical profession, there's a lot that goes into becoming a doctor, and they don't always have that time because there are so many patients. But it's not just a quick, take this and you're going to be fixed. It's okay, let's get to the root cause. And I love that you talk about you have to have that belief and know that it's possible, because that can shift anything. And man, I just still can't believe what your hair looks like, because it's absolutely gorgeous. And you would think, man, wait, she really went through this? Yeah. That's crazy.
Thank you. So, I appreciate that.
When you work with people now, what is that process like? Do you have, I mean, you said it's individual, you have to take a look at what everybody's doing, what their lifestyle is and such, but is there a kind of a set process that you take them through?
Yes. So I have an online program. It's a hybrid. So let's say we start working together. The first thing we do, we have an intake form. It's 12 pages long. This intake form is asking all various types of questions. Once I receive this, then I'm able to give you my recommendations for you right now. Because even though we may, let's just assume, all have hair loss, all the same type of hair loss, again, this doesn't mean that you're not breastfeeding, or that somebody else is in menopause, or that somebody else is 5 years old, or that somebody else is in college at 20 and going through the same type of hair loss, or maybe they're looking to conceive. And so all these life factors play a factor into the healing process, but then also, tailoring it to each person. So my program is tailored to each person, to their needs, to their wants, to their diets, to everything. And we are improving on a cellular level every aspect of their health. We are improving every aspect of their health in order to upgrade and get that hair growth.
You mentioned a 5-year-old, you mentioned breastfeeding, or somebody in menopause. Is there an average age range that you tend to see alopecia show up in more?
So going back to the definition of alopecia and hair loss, this type of hair loss, any type of hair loss really can affect any type of person. And the autoimmune aspect affects children in a staggering number. And it also affects adults of various ages. I actually had a 50-year-old executive who was also a grandpa, who was also a father and a husband. And, it affected him in many ways. I actually have his interview on my podcast. And, he thought, oh, I can just shave my beard. No big deal. But then all these bald spots started coming here. And as a sales executive, he can't wear a hat to work. He needs to wear a suit and tie. And so having the issue of having these bald spots plus the suit and tie, gave him a lack of confidence, gave him a lack of, wanting to be out front. Imagine sales, having to do his daily work. So the hair loss affects men and women just the same. It affects children just the same, and probably in a worse situation with children, because there's a lot of bullying at school. There's a lot of, people who don't know, children who don't know what's going on. And so when they don't know, what do? They tease you, and so this is the heartbreaking aspect of it. But there is no average age. There is no, it affects one race or one nationality more, or one demographic more. What I will say with autoimmune diseases in general, it tends to affect women in general for autoimmune diseases over men. 2/3 of the time it affects women.
Interesting. because women take on so much sometimes, or just
But
the stress
dementia
level?
also affects women 2/3 of the time. Like there's a lot of things that affect women and we're not talking about it. And when you look at medical studies, it's based on men. It's not based on women's health. And women's health is one of those areas that is not really researched. There's less funding for, and there's not a lot of topics. I mean, even menopause, when we start to look at menopause isn't really talked about. It's not well known or well regarded. And it's kind of one of those taboo topics in culture, society, because everyone's going to experience it differently, even though every woman will go through it, but we're all going to experience it differently. And it's only now where, you see people like Oprah talking about menopause openly, because there needs to be an information. There needs to be more awareness around it, not just for the woman going through it, but for all the other family members, because we're not going crazy. This is just part of life.
And that is so true. And it does affect everybody differently. But also just like pregnancy, no two pregnancies I have 4 children. None of my pregnancies were the same. Nothing, you can't look at just a textbook and say, this is what's going to happen. So I imagine in many different areas. Do you work with people only with alopecia, or is there crossover? Because as you mentioned, they can batch up together and you can have ongoing or other autoimmune diseases that kind of partner with each other. So do some of the things that you work with help people in other areas too?
Absolutely. So I work with people who have hair loss, who come to me primarily for that. However, lo and behold, they have ancillary symptoms, ancillary health conditions and concerns, whether it is they want to conceive or, manage their menopause symptoms or anything else. But sometimes they come to me and they have androgenic alopecia, which is female pattern baldness, which affects the scalp right here in the crown. Sometimes it's traction alopecia, which is sometimes in the inner inlets, and it's normally due because you put your hair in a ponytail or in a bun, or even ballerinas tend to have this situation. You also have scarring alopecia, which is a type of autoimmune alopecia, but the follicles scar, and apparently what happens is that the follicles don't regrow. They scar, essentially, almost like the acne scars that sometimes you see on people's skin, and then the skin has an indentation of sorts. The same thing would happen on the scalp. And then you also have telogen effluvium and diffuse, which is like all over shedding. And this could also be considered long COVID. This could also be considered hormonal, thyroid. This could also be considered postpartum. So telogen effluvium and diffuse look differently depending on everyone's situation. But these are all different types of hair loss that I do help with. And if you have a second or a third autoimmune disease, or if you have any other health concerns, anything from hemorrhoids all the way to anything else that you could imagine, I'm happy to help with. And what I see is that once we start looking at the person as a whole, every aspect of their body starts to heal. So yes, they get the hair growth and they get all these other things taken care of too. So whether it's the anxiety, the mental, the emotional aspects, the physical aspects, digestive aspects, these all heal and get upgraded at the same time.
Because it all works together.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Yep. Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, from Apple to helping people get past an autoimmune disease, especially alopecia. Did you ever think that you would be doing the work that you're doing nowadays?
Never. I never thought that. I loved working in tech. I loved working with people. I loved corporate life in many ways, but I absolutely love, and I feel it's such a blessing. It's a blessing that I had alopecia. It's a blessing that I'm able to help people and people abroad. I work with people in 67 countries. And to me, here in the US, we have so many more options that are not allowed or not open to people abroad. And I say this because I lived it. I lived in the Netherlands. I've lived in Japan. I've lived in Brazil. I've lived in Argentina. I've lived in different countries. I've experienced different healthcare systems. And even though Americans poo-poo our current healthcare system, it's not perfect. But at the same time, we have choice. But abroad, especially for those in universal healthcare, they have zero choice. Zero choice. And as someone who loves having a choice, this was the hardest aspect of living abroad, is not to have a choice to see a doctor. Just to give you a little insider, while I was pregnant at 40, I never saw a doctor once. I was not allowed to see a doctor. And I lived in Europe. I didn't live in some, third world country at the time. I was living in Europe and I did not have access to a doctor. And I tried to pay my way to see doctors to try to get access. And it was, shut down. There's so much red tape. There is so many, doors closed that it just wasn't available. Even testing was not available to me. I had 2 ultrasounds and 1 urine test. That's it.
Oh, geez.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like I was in the Middle Ages. And so I would say is that the first thing is like, be grateful if you have the choice and options, because that's a beautiful thing. If you don't have the choice and options, I'm here to help, because there is more you can do. And there's so much more that's available to you, but it's not going to be in your own country. It's going to have to be online.
Yeah. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself, or find somebody that's going to help you do just that. Choice 100%. Is good.
No, choice is everything. Because if we don't have choices, then we're limited. And that is part of the problem, is that the limiting beliefs from certain practitioners, come into you and you adopt them. So just like if a doctor would say to me, sorry, there's no cure for alopecia, am I supposed to accept that and just go home and console myself? No, don't accept it. If you think like deep down, like there's something else you can do, there's more you can do, believe it and run with it and take it and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. I actually have a friend who her daughter was going through a situation. It took her 111 doctors to see until she finally found the root cause. And she's here in the US. So she's got options. She has choices.
111
doctors. She spoke to 111, and it was that last one who gave her the answer to her child's situation. But this is the beauty and the love of a relentless mom who will not stop at anything until her daughter is healed.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I know people that have done the same thing. And it's beautiful to watch when you finally get the answers and you feel like you're on track. But you know what it is? It's listening to your gut. And it's knowing. Like my daughter was going through something with actually her daughter, my granddaughter, and her husband even had it. And she kept thinking, we've got mold in the house. There's something going on. And she is trained in functional medicine, but she was like, I don't know. And she tried a couple of other things and then finally had the house test it for mold. And then they came and stayed with me. And as soon as they found out, yes, the mold was very high and everything started clearing up when they removed themselves from the situation. But you know what? It's trusting your gut and following through and asking those questions, because you can always dig deeper if you don't feel like you're getting the right answer. So I just absolutely applaud you. I applaud your story. I love the fact that you are doing this work, because honestly, I am a firm believer that our body has the answers and it can heal itself, and that everything is living within at a cellular level. It's in our tissues, and there is a way to heal ourselves and to reverse whatever might be ailing us. So I'm so thankful that you're here, that you shared your story, and that you are working with people. We will put information down below for people to get a hold of you. But I do know that it's Alopecia Angel. You've got a podcast called Alopecia Angel as well, right? And then you've got a program that we will put a link to down below in the show notes.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm available everywhere, alopeciaangel.com, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And I'm happy to help. It is from the pain to how I've come to help people. It's through that same pain that I know, and I hope to be a beacon of light for others, because where there are no answers, I have answers. I, walk the walk and talk the talk, and I can walk somebody step by step through it so that they can see their hair growth and their health and everything else thrive and be optimized.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and sharing that information, sharing your story. Again, we are going to put the links down below so people can get a hold of you and they can listen to your podcast as well. So, Johanna, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please consider leaving a rating and hit that subscribe button. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. I'll be back again next week with another episode of Shift or Get Off the Pot.